Hey everybody, I'm Tracy Kennick. I'm the Director of Communications here for the City of Beaumont. We are doing something today that we've never done before. We want to take live questions from you, our citizens, on the bond proposal, because I know a lot of you have questions. You're getting answers from several different sources, and it hasn't been, although we've had our meetings open to the public, there hasn't been a real chance for you, the citizen, to directly ask some of these questions apart from the bond survey. So we're hoping, and the open house, we did have that, but I know still a lot of you have questions. Hasn't been done in 43 years here at the City of Beaumont. So a lot of you aren't even familiar with what a GO bond means and what that will mean for you as a citizen. So today we want to get to some of those questions. We're hoping that you'll chime in, ask some questions. We don't want it to be political. We want it to be informational, and we want to focus on your questions. So Christina Loki is the Economic Development Manager here for the City of Beaumont, and AJ Turner is the Mayor Pro Tem, been on the council along with Chris Durio the longest, so kind of knows how we got here. And let's start as people start hopping on and asking questions. Let's start with how we got here, AJ. A lot of people wondering how these particular issues that were put on the bond proposal got there. Why don't you start us off there?
Awesome. That's a great question, Tracy. First of all, I'm thankful that you allow us to have this platform to kind of educate the community on how we even got to this process and what we're actually doing. And people who are confused, here's your opportunity, one of many, to ask your questions and get transparency and see what's going on. So how we got here. In 2021, I was elected to the council, and as a council, we start to talk about what do we want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And it's pretty interesting that we looked at it from that perspective, because we were looking at what other cities were doing, and they actually had strategic plans online from 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. We had our traditional CIP, which we do year to year, but the problem was we didn't have the long-term and short-term plans and how we would get there. So in 2021, as a council, we did a vision workshop, and it wasn't traditional because we didn't bring in a consultant. We actually, as a council, did it ourselves in the chambers, and I actually was up on the whiteboard writing down how everybody felt and what everybody was interested in. And I'm thankful for my colleagues for even having the confidence in me to help assist in creating that vision. And what I learned is on the campaign trail, we all gave feedback on what the citizens were complaining about. Drainage issues, street improvements, park improvements, economic development. All these things came about starting in 2021. Then in 2022, we hired the consultants to come in and help us create the plan. And we literally had 7 to 9 meetings going over how can we get to the issues we were identified in the strategic planning. And once we solidified the document in 2023, now we're at the point where it's time to execute it. And the next step was to actually pick a bond committee. Each council member got to appoint 2 people out of the community to represent us and look at the vision and how can we get there in the bond. And to my understanding, it was almost $1 billion in projects proposed, but we landed around $210 million. And
Yeah, they scaled it back quite a bit.
yes, ma'am, they peeled it back tremendously. But the reality is these people took their time and literally spent hours going through it, hearing citizens' concerns, listening to them at town halls, and we just wanted feedback. And this is just another layer of the feedback we're looking for and direction to represent the City of Beaumont.
All right. And Christina, you have been a big part of this. I mean, you've been in all of those meetings as well and listening to all of the presentations. You were a part of the presentations. Let's start by talking about the 4 propositions that this committee of 17 people came up with. They've narrowed it down to 4 categories for the people that, for the citizens that are like unsure, what does Proposition A mean? What does B, C, D? And we do want to let you know that as you do, if this does get approved by council, whatever gets approved that goes on the ballot, you'll be able to pick and choose. You don't have to vote for all 4 propositions, right?
That is true. And what I think was so important about this bond committee is the fact that Jeff did a great job with Gap Solutions. They first introduced the entire bond committee in that first meeting of what the bond was, what the differences between CO and GO bonds, and more importantly, their role that they're going to get to play in each one of these meetings. And how they were going to start with a funnel process, a process of which they were going to be thrown a whole bunch from the strategic plan to over $1 billion worth of projects. And over the time and the course of this, they would be able to funnel those projects down and learn and be able to be informed so that by the end of it, they'd be able to make those informed decisions, which they did. And so I think it's really exciting because as you can go to beaumontbonds.com or on the city website, cityofbeaumont.com/bonds. .gov. Okay, great. I'm learning. But the best part about it is that it's all there. You can watch every single one of those meetings. And I would encourage you to. And while I know it seems like a lot, but maybe get to the last few of them, because then we're really able to recap the projects. And so what would happen is that we started the very first meeting with parks. And so you were able to hear all about the parks and the brand new master plan. So it was really encouraging for the committee to hear that there is a 89-page HALF document that has just been released that the city paid for to allow for the parks to not just determine every single park that's in the city, but the needs of those parks and what our future holds in a way that we could see individually, not only immediate concerns, but future considerations, and taking into account the amount of people that are utilizing these parks.
So Parks and Recreation, and that's going to be Proposition B, is that correct?
Yeah, well, and honestly, a lot of these propositions, the numbers, they're going to change. See, that's the concern here. It's just, we're just now getting this information out, but obviously council is going to make. And so we don't want to, I'd hate for us to get so specific on these propositions because you're going to start thinking, oh, now they said this, and then now there's misinformation. But that's not the information. What it is that as of today, the bond committee has suggested these 4 propositions.
Yeah, and they are, go ahead.
And so they are the parks as proposition, the facilities and public safety.
And what does that mean? What's in there?
Perfect. Facilities and public safety is a fire station. Fire station number 4. It's going to be not a brand new. It's going to be a new development of the current station. What's really exciting is that you can see the current need. Also is the animal shelter. If any of you haven't been out to the animal shelter lately, please take a minute to see it for yourself. I think that was really what was encouraging with this bond committee is that if they hadn't been to a certain place that we were discussing, it was interesting to see their thoughts after they went out themselves. And then more importantly is public safety. We listened to the bond committee. They were concerned about the possibility of including the police station and the need for the police department to have that station. But when they heard of the cost of this $100 million number, it just seemed so astronomically big. And they didn't want to put too much of a burden on the taxpayers. So what was so incredible was that Kenny, our facilities director, he went back and he took time to find essential needs so that some money could be put on this bond to address the immediate needs and concerns of the police, but not necessarily a huge figure that, right now, it's a big number. When you think of $210 million, it's hard to quantify. I mean, I'm an individual. I'm never going to see $1 million in my bank account, let alone to quantify $210 million.
So, Christina, somebody's asking, Tim is asking, have potential sites for the proposed fire station number 4 been identified?
And you know what? Honestly, there's probably been a few sites that's been determined internally. But
okay, Kenny's nodding his head over there, Kenny.
But right.
Yes, they have.
Yes.
Do you want to come
Do you
talk
want to
about
talk
any
about
of the
it?
potential sites?
You can. Come on. Come tell everybody.
I'm a sub out,
Yeah,
okay?
keep your questions coming too. We want this to be a kind of an open forum, so if you do have questions, this is kind of just sit back and talk and get some of your questions going. So go ahead, Kenny.
Sure. Kenny Smith, Director of Facility Maintenance. There has been some potential sites identified. We've been working with Chief, and we've been going around and assisting Chief, checking out different places that we could possibly have Fire Station 4. So it's definitely in the making. So we're still looking at different potential sites. Hopefully this gets passed, and then we can kind of identify those.
Okay.
So the acquisition is also included.
That's correct. Acquisition of land is also included in this bond. So.
Yeah. And tell a little bit about what you did with the police, because I can't say enough from your perspective.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that the police, that was a really big project that we then again narrowed down, or the committee did, right? Talk about that.
Sure. I just want to say first that, we stand and support Chief Ochtenchek as well as Assistant Chief Plunkett and the entire Beaumont Police Department. So as Director of Facility Maintenance, I know that police, they have a need, and it's a need there. Obviously, the reason that we know is because it's in our CIP to have a new police station eventually in the future. So there's a need there. But as you mentioned, we want to work on our needs as of right now and also plan for the future. So trying to address some of the needs that we have right now, that we're trying to focus on some of the essential things that were going on. So things like elevators and some of the other issues that they have there, increasing storage for their evidence storage due to new state and federal regulations. So those were some of the things that we will hopefully be able to address immediately.
Okay.
And then the animal shelter, will you give a little bit of insight about how they've overgrown the current location and how long it's been on the CIP?
Sure, it's been on the CIP for years now. So I mean, the animal shelter is right next to our facility, the facility maintenance building, and it's busting at the seams. I mean, as of right now, there are animals that are outside. It used to be where animals will only be stored there for 3 days, but now we're kind of like a 90% no-kill facility, and it's obviously making them have to keep the animals a little bit longer to have them adopted. So by that, I mean, you know, they don't have the capacity anymore. So by on this bond, by putting something on like a new animal services and adoption center, we plan on expanding that facility so we can actually be able to take care of those animals and adopt them and keep them separated. So
Okay.
it's really exciting, really fun.
Perfect. Thank you, Kenny. So, Christine, let's get to, so we talked about a little bit about parks, and we have Kenneth Raggett too. If you want to switch the microphone, he can come over and talk a little bit about some of those projects that are on there. I want to get to as well the economic development portion as well, that would be your wheelhouse.
Yeah, and I think that's really what's was encouraging with this bond was, you know, I think we look at it as each one of these directors were helping to facilitate this project. You have to understand this is the first time any of us have done this. I mean, 43 years. We're thankful for June Ellis, our assistant city manager, and Kenneth Williams, our city manager, to have had plenty of experience in other cities and bringing that institutional knowledge here with us. But for many of us, this is the first time that a bond was really presented. So it took a lot of education. And we're lucky that we already had not only a strategic plan, but a community investment plan. So basically our CIP, so we're going to refer to it as a CIP. And what that does is it outlines for the next 5 years of what is going to be placed in our fiscal year budgets. And the best part about it is that not only is it adopted through council's approval, but more importantly, it is changed yearly. So that as year by year goes on, if there's more priorities that need to be made at a current date or a higher date, it's shifted, right? If we spent too much money and the funding that isn't necessarily there next year for a water park feasibility study, well, guess what? It gets shifted further back. So, you know, it's important for the citizens to be aware of the policies that we already have that allow for us to encourage this project and really already know what projects that were potentially being proposed, because we simply followed the strategic plan adopted by council and our community investment plan, which was also adopted by council.
Right. So these were priorities that were already in the works for the committee when they were presented with them. And Kenneth, our Parks Master Plan, I want you to talk a little bit about that, and then what in particular from that is being proposed here.
So our Parks Master Plan was adopted by council really just a couple of months ago. And inside of the bond, what we plan on is replacing 9 of our playground equipment throughout the city. Those parks will be Rogers Park, Roberts, Guzman, Collier's Ferry, Magnolia, Fletcher Mini Park, Hal Booty, and Cottonwood. So they'll all be receiving new playground equipment. But I think the biggest thing that we have going for us is really redeveloping Terrell Park. I actually grew up here in Beaumont, and I can remember Terrell Park being the place to be. And I think once we redevelop the south end part of Terrell Park, including some upgrades to the botanical garden, and then eventually the golf course, Terrell Park will become the destination of Southeast Texas.
Now, speaking of the golf course, that was something that was proposed, and they decided to table that for a later time, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
But there are other things that are on there that can interest people.
Yeah, a lot of things, especially that the south end of Terrell Park, what we have planned for there, you can go online and look at it in the master plan. We have a multi-age playground, pickleball courts, splash pad will be added, amphitheater, all types of trails, cricket field. We have a large population here that are really playing cricket. You can go there on Sundays and you'll have 3 300, 500 people out there on the cricket field. And right now, it's really just I would really say just a makeshift cricket field, but the people still come out. But they'd like something better, so it's included in this new upgrade into the south end of Terrell Park. We're also talking about complex 4 at our athletic complex, putting down turf fields. Right now, we don't have any turf fields inside of our complex, which means you can play ball year round. So that'll be a great additive, not only for our citizens, but those who are coming out from different areas that want to rent our facility, and we'll just have something bigger and better for them to see.
Love it. And what about the different wards? I know that's always a concern that there are ample things going in different wards. What is proposed for each of the wards?
Well, as mentioned, we have the new 9 playgrounds going in, and that'll touch each ward that we have.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. We do
Don't
have
forget
some.
Cattail Marsh.
Cattail Marsh, everyone knows Cattail Marsh. They come from all over the world to visit and see the birds in Cattail Marsh. It's a great place. Terrell Park, again, is a diamond in the rough. So all we're going to do is really shine it up and present it to Southeast Texas.
And I'm glad you said that, because I think that's the best part about Terrell Park, is that not only is it a park for the community to enjoy, but it's also a huge revenue driver. We've got to understand and realize that our visitor spending last year alone was $391 million. And of that visitor spending, 25% of those visitors that are coming here are going to not only Terrell Park, but Cattail Marsh. And Cattail Marsh isn't just a birding haven. It's full wetland stormwater system that's basically run by the city of Beaumont. So when you flush your toilets, this is the coolest thing. And if you haven't been out to Cattail Marsh, I want to encourage all
Where
of
is
you to
this
go.
going?
But I think it's important for you to realize that every time you flush your toilet, guess what? That water is going to go into the stormwater drains, and it leads to Cattail Marsh. And so it starts off in cell 1 as this just dirty water. And as it goes from cell 1 all the way to cell 8, and this is over 1,000 acres of a wetlands, right? Each one of those cells, the water purifies through nitrification of the plants in the wetlands. So it's incredible, because not only is this site being utilized by our city, it's truly a wastewater system, but more importantly, it's drawing in visitors from all over the world.
And that ties in really well with Joseph's question. He said, I'm glad the committee's looking at the parks. But I don't see anywhere I heard anyone mention how they're going to get the kids and the people back into our parks. What's the plan, if any, to get low-income people back into the parks?
I looked at him and I said cameras. I can't say cameras enough. Guys, RTCC, Real Time Crime Center, please pay attention to what's going on. It's incredible. Beaumont has entered new technology. We are updated. And right now, if you could see how incredible the studio is, and just looking at 7 different views and the staff that's behind all of this. I mean, the city is in the new digital age, and you have to be. I mean, look at how fast social media spreads information. And so that's what's so important about this, is that how we're going to bring the kids back out to the parks. We're going to upgrade the restrooms. Gosh, these restroom facilities are just awful, right? In the CIP, we've included 2 pavilions structures that are going to be added year after year. And it's important to have that, right? Why? Because of shade. It's so hot in Southeast Texas.
Yeah, and
But
the water parks, the splash pads, we've got a lot of those around the city as well. And I guess the cameras, making families feel safe in our parks. Talk about the cameras in our parks, Kenneth.
Yeah, right now we have cameras located in 10 of our parks, and in our CIP we have it planned now to basically get cameras in all of our parks. Every year we'll be adding more and more cameras inside of our parks, but we're also going to start looking at more activities, recreational things that are going inside of our parks, that we can get our citizens back inside of our parks and enjoying our park system.
why do you think those recreation activities are so important?
Well, you have to have somewhere for the kids to come and do something. That way that they are not, thinking about what can we do or where should we go. Come to one of our city parks, enjoy a safe environment, fun environment, and a place that you can enjoy yourself and be a kid.
Yeah, I
And
love
it's
that.
free.
Okay,
And it's
Danielle
free.
is saying, as one still on the fence about this, I love the idea of revenue producing projects. I'm happy for downtown development, parks redevelopment, and more. However, I'm very concerned that we do not have adequate transportation, sidewalks, and I think James also mentioned sidewalks. Maybe we can address that for public to be able to enjoy the updates. And then also city buses don't run to Terrell Park currently. Nor are there sidewalks, bridges to get there. How can this bond better pair attracting visitors and helping locals love where they live, be better there, by better quality of life here.
Oh, I love that. Oh, sidewalks. Okay. There is not a single person who works for the city of Beaumont who is going to disagree that this city does not need more sidewalks. But at the same time, we cannot go back in time to have put sidewalks in for the last 20 to 25 years. And so we're at a cusp of almost every area needs sidewalks, right? But the question is how do we determine where to start? And so that's why it's so important that we get a feasibility study, a full-scale sidewalk master plan, very similar to what our parks master plan is. And that is a part that's included in the bond, and altogether it's $5 million for the sidewalk program. And so I think it's important for us to realize that we need this master plan. We need to determine where to start and how to continue to progress year after year. Because what you have to see is that in the CIP, I'm going to keep referring to it, and of course you can just go online and you have access to every document because the city is very transparent, but in the CIP you will see that every year there is money allocated for sidewalks. So it's not that the city isn't investing in sidewalks continuously, it's just there's so many vast areas that need those sidewalks. And guess what? It's expensive. Concrete continues to go up in the same way everything else does these days. And so I think that citizens have to realize that by the city now with a strategic plan and investing in master plans such as parks, sidewalks, and potentially a feasibility for facilities that will allow for us to spend the time to really know what the needs are with facilities like the police station. Then we're going to be engineered to really have the plans to move forward and make the right choices.
Okay, and I'm going to have AJ come back, if we will. Thank you, Kenneth, to talk a little bit about, again, some of these projects that the council decided were the most important. And when we were talking about quality of life, AJ, that's really one of the top priorities, right, is improving quality of life here. Why don't you talk about that?
Well, I brought what I call our councilman's Bible, the
Okay,
CIP.
yeah.
The
Because
CIP.
the CIP is something
That stands for?
Community Investment Plan.
Okay.
Because it's about how we plan to invest in the community. And one thing I want to go on the record and say is no one individual council member can lead or make a decision.
Sure.
The way the government body works, it takes 4 or more to actually approve and give staff, which is our city manager, one of our 4 employees, direction on how to work with staff to execute the vision. So I think it's very important to mention that. But quality of life, that's one thing we heard when we reached out to the community about what are some of the needs that you guys feel this city needs. And quality of life was a huge one. When we first looked at what we were presented in the past in the budget on parks, and the budget was around $300,000 a year in parks in the past, and what happened is we were able to really maintain our parks with that type of budget. The reality is, if you look at what just happened at the park, I call it the Imagination Station. That was a $500,000 playground upgrade. That was more than what the overall budget was. So if you want to see these things, they cost. And if we want to pay for these things, we need to give the citizens the option to say, yes, I'm willing to, or no, I'm not. It's not my decision as an individual. It's my job to lead and give them the option.
Okay, now in talking about that, because I think this is an issue that's come up a lot, people are saying, okay, I do want parks and I do want some of these upgrades, but not at the cost of not having clean water or safe roads to travel. Let's talk about that. And how is it possible to have both?
Okay, I'm just going to say it. Lately people have been saying, you can chew and walk at the same time.
Chew gum and walk at the same time.
And I love it. Chew gum and walk at the same time. And I want to kind of reiterate that, because I think that's what's so encouraging and exciting about the platform that the city is at right now. We are on the cusp of a lot of really exciting projects, and I think it's time for the citizens to realize that, we need you. We don't just need your money. We need you. We need your voice. We want to hear your concerns. I have lived in Beaumont, I hate to say my whole life, but truly, after high school, I just wanted to get out, right? But coming back and just seeing, the progress that Beaumont has made over the years, it is progress. And the city is doing more now. In the 7 years I've worked for the city, I can firmly say that the city is doing more now than it was 7 years ago. But more important than that, it's doing it with a strategic plan in mind and goals that we're attaining. So on August 22nd of 2023, the City Council adopted our strategic plan. And huge kudos to Miles Haynes, because he has showcased in multiple City Council meetings that we are already about 70% completed with those goals. And we haven't even hit the 2-year mark. And that is huge, huge. So I think at the same time, we've got to see that there probably isn't as many brown water calls. Actually, I don't need to answer that. AJ, how many more brown water calls did you get when you first started to where you are today?
To be completely transparent, it was astonishing when I first got on council, the amount of brown water issues we deal with. I can even pull emails from 2021 when I first got on council. That was literally weekly. And one thing I want to shout out to staff and the prior council, I'll use the CARES Act funding as example. That was money that came down, and we were able to utilize that COVID funds. We were able to utilize that for various things throughout the community. The city of Beaumont got roughly $33 million, and council gave direction to our city manager, and our city manager and staff worked together to identify almost $29 million in funds that went solely towards sewer and drainage. And for a council to get that type of revenue in and make that the priority, because that was the number one issue that we were having in the city of Beaumont, it literally speaks volume. And I just want to tell my colleagues I appreciate them, because we're unanimous on that. No one pushed back and wanted to allocate the funding in other places. We put the funding in the needs where the community were actually speaking up. And the calls have went down tremendously. Do we have work to do? Absolutely, but the calls have went down tremendously. And when we talk about funding, it's another thing that I've learned through experience. We have to understand the funding sources. So
yeah, let's talk about that,
yes,
because
please.
I've heard a lot of citizens say, why not just put streets and drainage on this GO bond, because that's what matters most to us. Let's talk about those different sources of funding and why that would not be a great idea to put them all on a GO bond.
Okay, so before AJ goes through his next thought, which is so strong, and I think it's really important, I just want to yell to the rooftop this one simplistic idea about GO bonds. If the city were to put any project on any proposition and it were not approved, then the city cannot fund that project for 3 years. And if you haven't heard me, 3 years. So just imagine what kind of risk that could be if we put projects that the city truly needed and have to wait 3 years to fund those projects. But AJ, really, you were getting to the biggest point that people need to hear and understand of what pays for what in the city.
So when I first got on council, again, understanding the process, learning, and I'm thankful for the ones who kind of educated me and mentored me along the way. But when you look at sewer, it's called enterprise fund, which is the water enterprise fund. You have to pay for sewer projects out of the water rates. And one of the things that I was fascinated by, I had no clue, you're graded kind of like a credit score. When you come through and they go through our finances, we get our bond ratings. And if we aren't able to handle our water and sewer infrastructure through our water rates, the bond rating can go down, and that hurts your borrowing power. So very similar to a credit score. If you're not able to maintain and pay those bills on time, now it hurts your interest rate when you go out and borrow that money at that low interest cost. So it's important for citizens to know when we talk about sewer, we have to make sure we take care of those sewer projects out of the water enterprise fund. And again, one of the most important things when we talk about drainage, because we do have drainage propositions in the bond, if the citizens of Beaumont chooses not to move forward, because it's solely the citizens' choice.
Right.
For 3 years, some of those needs can possibly not be addressed. And that's something I think we need to be 100% transparent about going into this. This is what we're risking, and I want citizens to understand. You're asking for it, and as a council member, I'm willing to support it, but understand the risks.
Right, and we do want to mention again that each of these propositions will be listed separately on the ballot. You can go in and vote for them. And the number one thing that most people want to know is how much will this cost the average citizen? So let's get to that topic.
Yeah, again, we're speaking a little ahead because we're not quite at the council's decision. So I just want to be very honest with that.
Right, this does
because
have to
this
go
is
to
just
council
the
for
bond
y'all to
committee.
decide, right.
And so I say that just because, so much information has kind of been thrown really fast. And for many citizens out there, including a lot of my family members and friends, there's a lot of questions out there because we haven't gone out to bond for 43 years, and you're hearing a lot of information. But the truth is that right now this information is ever changing. It's constantly going to change until the city council determines what it is that's going to be listed on each proposition. And then there is specific wording for that proposition. So at the point where the wording has been determined from the council's priorities, then every single citizen is going to be able to read the exact wording of what comes on the ballot. And that's transparency. And, again, all of the videos were recorded on the committee, all of the strategic plan, the CIP, every resource, including the presentations, are all available online. So I think it's just really important for citizens to know where to get that information. Now, as of right now, currently, the bond committee has proposed 4 propositions. If all 4 of those propositions were to pass at a total of $210.5 million, then it would be roughly $11.24 per month per $150,000 home. Now, I just said a lot there, so let me break it down.
Yeah.
Of the propositions that we have to see that we're talking about parks, we're talking about infrastructure, we have facilities, and we have an economic development. So those are the 4 main categories. And if all 4 of those categories are approved, then it would be $11.24 more per month for a $150,000 home. So if you were sitting back with a $300,000 home, you could assume it would be most likely somewhere closer to $2,250. And that's where the math kind of comes from. But I just have to say this, and this is not avocation. It is truly about education. All of the reason that we are here right now is simply for you to learn what each one of these propositions are and to know exactly why the committee placed them there, because you could watch the video to see what factual information was presented to the committee to allow for them to determine that decision. And then here's the kicker. Of the committee members that attended, it was unanimously voted. And I have to tell you, y'all have to understand how hard of a decision this was for them. And the fact that these people donated their time for free. But more importantly, you've got to realize there were golfers in that room. There were many
Not everybody got
golfers
what
in
they
that room.
wanted, right?
Right? They didn't all get what they want. Because they were really putting into the mindset of the citizens and of the facts.
What they think is top priority right now that they're hoping to get. And let's talk about that. So the GO bond means that it will go to the citizens, and then it will, be a tax increase depending on how much your home is worth. So it will be less than $11.24 if your home is less than $150,000. But we do want to reiterate that. Oh, I've lost my train of thought now.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it will be based on how much your property value is worth. And again, some of these projects, if you were to take them off, a lot of people talking about the athletic complex. And I do want sewer and drainage, but I don't want the athletic complex. So you can decide on that. But somebody asked about that specifically, Christina. I want to send that over to you and talk a little bit about the downtown development part, because I think a lot of people are on board with sewer and drainage. A lot of people. So that's one of the unknowns that a lot of people don't know a lot about. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Tracy, before we mention the athletic complex, I just think it's important to make people understand council has yet to finalize anything.
Yes.
It's all proposed. I'll give you an example. We go through budget season every year. We approve our budget in October 1. The budget might be proposed, but council has authority to make amendments to the budget, and some things can actually change. So here's your opportunity as citizens to advocate for some things that you want to see. Just all I ask is people to be considerate of the time and work and effort that the committee has put together, but you still have an opportunity to give input, and some things can be altered, but understand we want to kind of work for the majority.
Right. I remembered my thought too. So the GO bonds, if they go on here, they can get passed faster because these funds are readily available. So these may be projects, and a lot of them got put into tier 3, which is maybe down the road they want to address them. But these were issues that they thought either they will bring in money to the to the community right away, which they were excited about, or they were simply things that they thought needed to be top priority right now. Because they can get passed right now. If they get passed through a proposed bond, then they can be addressed quicker, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So we want to talk about that. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's get to the athletic complex now.
Okay, so really exciting stuff just to kind of show people that this exists. We've been talking to you about a strategic plan, right? So our goals for 2028 is simply a great place to live, a financially sound city, a vibrant downtown riverfront, goal number 3, livable neighborhoods, and upgraded city facilities. So we have great place to live and vibrant downtown riverfront. So I think it's important for you to be able to see this because remember, this is the strategic plan that was adopted in August 22nd of 2023. And our goal 1, great place to live, objective 3 is to expand recreational and leisure options for all. Number 4 is develop Beaumont as a sports tourist destination. Think about that. Now later in the strategic plan, what's really cool about it is AJ's talking to you about what the council did. But you've got to consider what the administration did, what the directors were doing. They were identifying their key objectives, their highlights for their departments, their challenges within their departments, and their hopes for the future. And so all of those from each individual department was being able to consider into what would be outlined out as goals and objectives and to see if they would follow those objectives. So one of the objectives was to determine the feasibility of an indoor sports complex. And again, remember, this was done in 2023. Now, another priority was economic development, hence where I came in. And I really think it's important to kind of understand where the city has been and where it's going. I mean, for over 20 years, the city has not had an economic development department or person. We have truly relied on our partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, who has done an incredible job. But now, having somebody here in this role, we have to start understanding what revenue for the city means. And revenue can come from property tax that, to be honest, many of you need to look into because our property tax has steadily declined since 2018. In fact, for many people, 2018, our property tax was closer to 72 cents. And today, it's at 64 cents. So please look into the facts before you consider, a lot of the future ideas and progression. But getting back to where we are with the sports complex, there's just this simple idea, and that's truly that within those objectives and this indoor sports complex, we are spending money that is going to in turn make an indirect revenue for this city. And while many times you can look on the website and you can see an actual feasibility benchmark study that was done by a reputable company, the Sports Facility, who manages many sports facilities all across the United States, we also have to understand that these are predictive numbers. And so I don't want to sit here and spew out all these incredible numbers, like even if it's low performance, one court is going to be able to produce over $500,000 in indirect revenue. Because at the end of the day, they're not specific facts. I can't 100% tell you with certainty that that will happen. But I can tell you that this company that we paid believes in these numbers based off of the location and the proposed project. So in it, they show the case in numbers of 6 courts versus 8 courts. They also show the indirect revenue and the increase in indirect revenue as well as the cost. More importantly, they identified that these 8 basketball courts can be converted into 16 volleyball courts and 27 pickleball courts. Now just wait a second. I know I'm saying a lot to you, but we're not just talking about basketball here. And as much as I just mentioned 3 different sports, what happens when you take all the courts away and it becomes an open space? Then you start getting into gymnastics, baton twirling, wrestling matches even. More importantly, a gala of 1,600 could fit into this venue. And I think it's really exciting is to hear Sports Facilities' determination of the project. You're going to see some different kind of proposed elements of the facility that they're bringing in that we haven't even considered. Possibilities of working with an independent kind of sports facility of, I'm so sorry, my brain is, you injure yourself, and then there's a clinic that's off to the side. I'm sorry, I'll get that wording down better, but You know, and I think it's just because, and I have to say I'm sorry because I'm just a little too passionate, not about the project, but about the growth for the city, because that's my job,
And
economic
I
development.
want to get to that. She was mentioning that the council what was the vision back then when this was put into the strategic plan?
So again, it's all about making data-driven decisions. So when I first got on council, one of the main things we want to look at is how are we generating revenue for the city of Beaumont? And when we looked into those data-driven decisions, we looked at the data of tourism. One of the top two forms of tourism in the city of Beaumont for the past few years has been youth baseball. So if you look at the historical data of how successful we've been off indirect impact off youth baseball, and what I mean by that is we have youth baseball tournaments all the time, almost every other weekend in Beaumont, Texas. And I can't count the amount of times I've been in restaurants and I'm meeting teams from Dallas. I'm meeting teams from Denver. I'm meeting teams from Austin. They're traveling to our city, and guess what they're doing? They're filling up our hotels literally every weekend. They're spending dollars at our main event. They're spending dollars in our restaurants. And at the end of the day, that's the revenue we utilize to put back into the community. We can use that general fund money to fix streets. We can fix some of the drainage projects. We can attend to some of our
We can
public
put
safety
that money
issues.
somewhere else.
Yes. So what I learned quickly is it's really about how can we generate more revenue to go back into the community to make our community better.
And youth is one of your big priorities as well, right?
Yes, ma'am. I've been advocating for young people because at the end of the day, if we don't invest in our future, why would we expect the future to come back to Beaumont? And too often, I'm a testament of a kid that was born and raised in Beaumont. Almost 70% of my friends live outside of Beaumont, but I chose to come back and not talk about my city, but be a part of the change in my city. And I understand it's important for me to work with the people I'm on council with as well as represent the community to get us there. It's been a number of times parents, coaches, Little League coaches have came to me about, Mr. Turner, we don't have facilities to practice in. We don't have facilities to do programming in. And even as an educational aspect to the sports complex, it's classroom settings where those kids can actually learn how to be more comprehensive in reading and writing and mathematics prior to actually being able to utilize the facility. That's what makes it great is we keep saying a sports complex, but we're missing the multi-purpose. It's a multi-purpose sports complex, basically saying you can do multiple things with the side of that venue. And yet it's up to the citizens to give us input of what you would like to see. Because at the end of the day, it's our job to represent you guys, and we need to hear from y'all on what y'all would like this city to look like in the future and what important things are needed for you guys to get us there. We need your input.
And Christina, one of the things that I think the committee really considered is how close another venue of this sort is compared to Beaumont. Why don't you address that a little bit?
Yeah, so if you have a chance, Legends in College Station, you can look it up online. It's truly remarkable what they're doing, and they even have an esports area, and that allows for, during the week, it's opened up to the public, so that people have access for $5 for 1 hour of a computer with Wi-Fi access and printing capabilities. And you know, we've got to take a minute and just think about that. You know, if we didn't have our office or our home setting or a computer and a printer at home, how are you doing that? Are you going to FedEx? Are you going to, you know, Office Depot and paying $1.20 to get a piece of paper printed? And so, you know, I think that there's also facets of this project that have yet to be determined. And again, a huge component of why you're saying it needs input. But I guess at the end of the day, what's really exciting is not just this project, but the idea of what sports tourism can bring. I'm going to continue to repeat, $391 million in visitor spending. That type of a visitor economy. So that's money from the outside coming into, you know, to keep the. I mean, it is just the truth. But I think another facet of it is, you know, in Fort Park, we've learned that 35% of our visitors in our Zardico data, which basically the Convention and Visitors Bureau invest in data that allows to ping outside residents. So anybody within a 30-mile radius that comes into this area and spends any more than 3 hours here, we have pinged them, we have located them. And so this gives us data to kind of see not just locations that visitors are going to, but areas in which we are able to start marketing, because we know where they came from. We know how many people from Longview, Texas came to Beaumont, from College Station, from Houston, from Lake Charles. And so we're able to create a marketing strategy that attracts that. And so that's what's so encouraging about some of these bond projects and some of the goals within the strategic plan, is because we're just trying to draw in new revenue. Because outside of our visitor spending, the only other revenue that we can hope to increase is going to be the sales tax. And just honestly getting citizens to realize how important it is to shop locally. And not just locally at our local small mom and pops, but also at our Walmarts, at our Targets. Because all of that sales tax, 6.25%, comes back to the city.
All right. Also, I want to talk about very good points there, Christina. So we talked about our parks. We've talked a bit about our facilities and the upgrades to our fire station, the police station improvements, and economic development. Someone had a question, though, about the Dallin Road extension and what that will do. Why don't you ask or talk about that?
Okay, really excited about the Dallin Road extension is that you could go back to 2017, 2018. It was actually a slated project that stayed on the Community Investment Plan, the CIP, for many years. And so it's not just something that was brought up this year. It's actually a project that this city has, and specifically Mike Getz, has consistently promoted over and over again. I mean, I think you can even go back to a council meeting where he brought in a poster board. And I can still remember this council meeting very clearly in my head, where he's sitting on the dais holding up a poster board about Dallin Road extension, just wanting so badly to be heard. And I think, you know, where it comes to is this simplistic idea is this: it takes new roads for new development. And more important than that is simply that economic development is now considered a priority for the city. And it's the first time in 20 years. And so it's going to take usable land, developable land, to allow for the investment you really want. Because I'm just like you. You don't think I personally would love to have a Trader Joe's or a Whole Foods or the Papacitas that we're going to keep talking about for 20 years, even though they've already laid out on the ground. You know, I'm in the same boat with you. But there's a lot of really encouraging growth that's happening here. And I would also tell you to look into energy and the 2 new power plants that are coming to this area. And why they're coming to this area is not to bring in new capacity. It's to cover the capacity of the projects that are already slated for the next 5 years. There is so much industrial growth, over $50 billion worth of industrial growth coming to the Southeast Texas region. And with that comes jobs. And that's the biggest component of this. We're not just talking about development. We're not just talking about great restaurants. And I promise, hopefully, I will do everything I can to make sure it's not more gas stations or donut shops, to the best of what I can actually do. Because again, a property owner can sell to whomever and bring whatever. Of course, granted it's planned and zoned in the right zoning district. But still, if you follow me, just hear this. With development comes jobs. And with jobs and development comes more money. And the biggest asset to the city right now is for us to start working towards increasing the median average income. And if you don't know what that is, ask AJ, because he corrects me daily.
Now, Keith mentioned, and this is right along with what you're saying, he said we need to focus on expanding career opportunities for this to work and attract local college graduates with incentives to start various types of businesses and secure the future of our locals. And that's really key, is keeping people here and getting them jobs here, right, AJ? And you were looking, what were you researching there in your book?
Well, what I was researching is just the majority of revenue the city generates is property taxes and sales taxes. And I think that's something that we really need to hum in on, because our property taxes and sales taxes is what really makes the economy grow. So again, you have to look at the data and make data-driven decisions versus emotional decisions. And that's what I learned when I first got on the council. You know, by kind of sitting back, listening and learning, I learned to always try to make data-driven decisions and not emotional decisions. And I think that's important, because when we're talking about some of these projects, we have to ask ourselves, will this community be better when I leave? Yeah. And that's how I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the future. I'm not looking at the present. We can keep saying we want these things, we want our city to grow, but we have to be willing to invest and where we want our city to grow. And will it be a better place when we leave it? Because I want this place to be better for, hopefully, my daughters choose to stay in Beaumont, because I'm going to push them to.
Yeah, and that's another important key factor is our property taxes have gone down the past 5 years, right? So this, while it would be a property tax increase, we're still far below where we were 5 years ago with the increase. And that's something I think people need to really acknowledge
Yeah,
as well.
and just, I'm sorry, but there's just one thing that I think is just so important in all of this is there's other taxing entities that come in terms of your property tax. So just be able to also see that, you know, a portion of that property tax, it goes to BISD, it goes to the county, it goes to the Port of Beaumont. And all of those facets are really important as well. But, you know, I just really caution you to consider that not necessarily that this is a new conceptual concept, but more importantly, it is derived from a strategic plan with a course of action that gives you as the voters the ability to choose. This is not one lump project with one proposition that you get to say yes or no. And however council determines to separate those projects, you know, come what may. But I really have to thank the bond committee, every single person who spent hours of their time for free to really come up with something that they didn't just consider themselves or their wards or where they come from. They considered the community as a whole. And that's what I would encourage everyone to do.
Yeah, and go back and listen to some of those. And Pam was asking, she said, if the baseball players are already coming here spending money, how will spending money on a sports complex increase revenue for the city? We've kind of addressed that, but.
Yeah, well, I love it because I'm like, oh, totally different sport. And more importantly, what's really exciting is the fact that sometimes baseball tournaments get rained out. And there's only so many weekends in a year that you can sell, right? Encouraging to that, too, is the fact that, remember, the seasons. So baseball/softball has specific seasons. Best part ever is that we have volleyball, basketball, pickleball, different seasons, right? And not that they can't be interchanged with one or the another, but that's the encouraging and exciting part of it is that it would consider bringing in tournaments of different for all ages at different times of the year. And it's the ages that's the coolest component of this, because I love AJ and his ideas for youth, but I still have to say that, I mean, U50 leagues, U60 leagues, U70 leagues. I think I've said it in 3 interviews already because, you know, it's more about having things for people to do our age, you know, being able to go out with my husband and another couple and play pickleball and not outside in 100-degree weather. I mean, just the fact that things like that could be an opportunity here. It's remarkable to see that quality of life is not just a component within our strategic plan, but more importantly, it's what many of our residents are truly begging for.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's just about finding positivity and a reason to be proud of your community. If I could change one thing about the community, just find pride. And you know, I was speaking with a friend not too long ago, and they were saying, yeah, we have problems. Every city has problems, right? Every city has some type of road issue, or I go to state conventions, and their issues are the same issues that we have. And that's not the big problem, I think, is just uniting and figuring out ways, how can we move forward? And yes, we want to fix our drainage problems, and we are continuing that. And those projects won't stop, but how can we move us forward and find pride and say, come to Beaumont, come live in Beaumont. And you don't hear that a lot. And if we can get to a point where we can say, hey, I'm proud of where I live, and we have issues, but how can we come together to fix those issues? That's my ultimate goal. When we get to AJ.
I think it's important that we look at our city a little bit differently. You know, you want Beaumont to be an actual destination, not a place you just pass through.
Right.
And with us being the largest city between Louisiana and Houston, we have to actually understand we want our city to become a destination. Mm-hmm. Because with destinations become tourism, and tourism becomes more revenue, and the city can have more things to get more things done. And that's what I love about the experience of being on council. I actually understand the process and how these things work. And it's kind of funny, I might be the youngest one, but it's like I'm the senior. So it's a little different. You know, I'm probably the youngest senior on the council, but I actually understand, because I understand the funding sources. I understand how you have to supply these projects. And you know, in a typical world, you have to understand the processes and how it goes prior to speaking on it to make sure you're giving accurate information out to the community.
Right.
Well, and that's just it. It's so confusing. The city can be as transparent as we want. Everything can be out there, but it takes time to find the information and to really comprehend and understand it. And I have to give Tracy kudos because you in communication, y'all have really done an incredible job. I mean, that podcast with Molly recently, if you haven't seen it, please take a minute to look at it. Listen to the drainage. Listen to the improvements in the money that's been invested year after year, and even more money that's been being allocated for future years. You know, I think we have to realize that if we play a bigger role in being part of the solution, and you know, I say this and I laugh, but it's AJ's fault. He said it, you were running a campaign and you said, we keep talking about BISD, but when was the last time we were in BISD? When is the last time we devoted our time to try to be a part of the problem? And I went out to CTE program and I got to interview these kids in high school, and it was an eye opener. It was just like in my 7 years of working with the city and helping the BISD when coming in and kind of talking to the kids and talking about tourism and how and all this kumbaya, Beaumont is so great. Not one time have I, as a citizen, donated my time to help be a part of the solution. And so I really would encourage everyone to start, you know, not just looking into the information to educate themselves on what's actually going on in the city, but to take a step back and see where the problems are and help derive your input or give your time to be a part of the solution.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We've been an hour. It went by very quickly. But I appreciate all the questions and comments, and we'll try to continue to answer some of those as they come in. This is the first of a kind. We've never done this before, and I think we've had about 50 people consistently on here trying to get some information. So, and as this goes to council and the aspects get worked out, and they decide exactly what goes on each of those propositions, we as a communications team will do our very best to line out every single one of those propositions for you, to tell you exactly what will be in there, so that when you go into the ballot box, you're informed and you feel like you have the knowledge. So hopefully we can do this again. Thank you both for volunteering to come on and put you on the spot right here to answer questions from citizens. But I think that's a part of being a good, transparent government as well, for people that have those questions.
Yeah, and if I can just say, I'm just with economic development. There are so many incredible directors like Kenny and Kenneth, who you got to hear from today, but there's so many more that are still within our city, and they're just an email or a phone call away. And so I would encourage you to reach out to the different departments you may have questions with, or any of the department directors for any of the questions for this bond, because truly they're a remarkable resource, and they devote not only their time, but their heart for the city.
AJ, any last words?
Man, just in closing, I'm a big research guy. And I just look at what just happened in Birmingham, Alabama. I look at what happened out there in Baltimore, Maryland, and literally some of these mayors transformed crime because we actually gave young people a positive alternative to do. And if we don't figure out a way to address some of these kids that are out there creating these crimes and doing some of these things, everybody doesn't have a mom and dad at home. Everybody doesn't have a comfort environment once they leave school. You gotta look at the median income and look at some of the problems we have in Beaumont. And I understand as that large council member, it's my job to represent everyone, and I'm gonna work hard to advocate on behalf of everyone and make sure we have good quality of life, as well as be fiscally conservative in the city of Beaumont. Understand that during the data, the city was showing that citizens were willing to spend up to $15 for the bond a month. But when I say being fiscally conservative, our bond committee did a great job of that, because they landed almost $4 lower than what the data showed that the citizens were willing to spend. And that's just a testament of just understanding the need, but also not hurting the pockets of the citizens of Beaumont. And I'm just thankful for that.
All right. Great points. Thank you again, both of you. And Beaumont.bonds.com or BeaumantTexas.gov/bond if you want some more information. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in.
All right, guys.